Hey everybody, Uncle Rich here for Who's Telling the Truth. Today is June 1st, 2015. This is show 96, and the name of the show is Science. Now I know. Some people are gonna look at that and they're going to say, well, the smart people, the educated people are going to look at that and they're going to know that I'm goofing. You know what I mean? The clever people are going to know that science, it's a goof. And, most people are going to think that they just never thought of spelling science that way. And then, guys, of course, we're going to have the brainwashed, homeschooled simple folk, and they're going to think that's the way it's spelled. Hey Ma, there's a guy doing a show on science and he spells it the same way you do. Guys, but it's real, it's not fair to pick on the simple folk. It's really not fair. But I tell you, it's a lot of fun. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have fun. And we're not going to have fun trying to embarrass anybody. But when you have ridiculous ideas, and especially when it comes to global warming and climate change, when you have ridiculous ideas, that leaves you subject to ridicule. And that's what we're going to do. And we're not going to pick on people, but we're just going to have fun. And as the show goes on, you'll see, and guys, when it comes to science, if you're going to get it wrong, get it wrong. I mean, don't get it half wrong. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to see this as a definitive term, for the people that aren't scientists. I'm not a scientist. Yeah, well, you probably can't spell either, and you don't know which way is up. Because it's time that we stop playing this game, that we can't understand. But guys, what started this whole show is the flooding. A lot of the show is going to be based on the flooding in Houston. And it's been devastating. And it's been monumental. It's been horrendous. And of course, Uncle Joey, we start talking. And Uncle Joe, and by the way, guys, Uncle Joe is an actual real guy. He's not a fictitious character. He's a T-Billy Tejadist that lives up by Catskill, New York. So, I mean, and you can go on his Facebook page, Things to Ponder, but hopefully he'll come on our Facebook page later. But, so Joey said to me, he goes, Rich, why is it raining so hard in Houston? And I said, Joe, the answer's simple. It's really easy. When the globe warms up, when the air warms up, warmer air holds more moisture. It's as simple as that. Warmer air holds more moisture. That's why when it rains so hard. And Joey said, when it comes to physics, I'm going to smoke you. Joe, it's really simple. It's Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. There's no denying it. Well, I mean, no, you can deny it, and you will, because that's in your Republican conservative nature. You have to. But eventually, one day, you're going to have to call a spade. And what's happening is, and we've said this on the show many times, when these superstorms become the norm, that means that something's wrong. And I said that to Joe, and Joey said, Rich, that storm was just a coincidence. And I said, Joey, how many storms and how many different events are going to be a coincidence? And how many are going to be caused by climate change? And it's simple. A coincidence or climate change? And if there was one rare event in the year, then you'd say it's a coincidence. But when they keep happening over and over again, guess what? It ain't a coincidence. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about science. And, you know, guys, a lot of times if you really want to stop somebody dead in their tracks when it comes to a global warming debate and climate science, just mention the National Academy of Sciences. It's like giving them the ultimate bada bing. National Academy of Science, bada bing! What if they concluded? The conversation ends. Because they realize, I mean, even the simple folk, the brainwashed simple folk realize, they say, wait a minute, if the National Academy of Sciences is telling me something, do you think they're lying to me? And also, tonight we're going to show you another one of our sources is going to be NASA. Do you think NASA is on a global conspiracy? I mean, do you guys really think this? I mean, is this possible? All right, but anyway, guys, you know, you always have to give kudos to where they're due. And Judy, we're gonna go into the first still. And guys, I want to thank, if we can bring up the very first still, guys, I want to thank, and Judy, you can go back and forth to me, you know, while I'm doing this, but I want to thank Lucy Meadows. And I asked Lucy, I had never heard of this phrase mentioned before. And I asked Lucy, Lucy used the phrase creation science, and she used creation with a K. And I said, Lucy, you know, can I use that and can I use your name? And she said, please do. And I said to her, Lucy, thank you. That's what the next show will be named, Science for the Simple Folk. And guys, I mean, we got to break it down. And really, to call somebody one of the simple folk, we have to start to define what we're dealing with here. And if you want to pretend that you're not a scientist, and if you want to pretend that you don't understand science, then guess what? We're going to call you simple folk. That's all. That's it. You know, and and when I mention stuff in a blog, I'm going to spell science like this just for you, so that you can remember and you'll understand. Now, guys, the next still is from Mike Muscura. And as you can see on Facebook, I posted Who's Telling the Truth, the last Who's Telling the Truth. And guys, what happened is I got knocked off of YouTube. So I had to put up the highlights, but that Facebook page, I mean, that YouTube got over 250 hits. So anyway, Mike Muscura, and I got to change my, my graphic on the computer here. I'm not used to doing this, but I'm getting the hang of it. So anyway, I asked Mike, I said, now you could see the picture that he posted. And I'm sure he thinks that I'm Jim Jones and I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. This is one of the, you know, things that the deniers always say, oh, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. But I asked Mike, I said, Mike, do you mind if I make fun of you on my next show? The show will be named Science, and I'm going to make fun of you simple folk. Is that okay with you? And guys, Mike wrote back, since you are the only one who watches the show, feel free to indulge in your fantasies. And I wrote back, Mike, thank you. At least you have the Galaducci's to step up to the plate. Glenn Hawley has wimped out. Now there's a guy with a big mouth with no Galaducci's. Isn't that sad? So guys, you see we got this little thing going on Facebook. And Judy, let's go to the next still. This is Glenn Hawley's reply. So we'll go to, there we go. And then, oops, Yeah, see, I got to keep up with you, Judy. I got to change this over here. But anyway, okay, I think I got it. Beautiful. All right, so anyway, I was talking with Glenn Hawley, and you could see, Glenn said, he calls me Richard Frass Clown. He thinks I'm a clown, and that's fine. You could think anything you want, as long as you listen to what I have to say. So anyway, he said, Richard Flash Clown, the academies of science do not conclude anything. They make various position statements according to what their perception of the political climate might be. So I replied to him, I said, Glenn, I love it when you simple folk prove that you don't understand the scientific method. You're homeschooled, aren't you? You need to punch your mama in the mouth. You lose. Sorry. And God, that was a little mean. But if you're homeschooled and if your mama did you wrong, bada bang. And listen, guys, there are going to be people that are homeschooled that are going to be brilliant. A perfect example, Tanish Abraham. I think he's 12 or 13 years old, just graduated college. He was in the Mensa group. The kid's a genius. And these are the type of people that we want to surround ourselves with. Now, he was homeschooled, but he was homeschooled by his parents who were almost a couple of geniuses. Those are the type of people you want homeschooling children. Not hey, my mother would have been a terrific teacher, but she wasn't certified. You know what I mean? There's certain things that you have to do to be a teacher. I mean, you have to learn to deal with people. You have to be, it's socially acceptable. There's a lot that goes into it. But guys, we saw Glenn Hawley's response. And what he said was, he says, your various position statements according to their perception of what the political climate might be. Glenn, once again, thermometers. Judy, can you come back to me? Thermometers don't have an R or a D on them. They only give you one number, the correct number. Thermometers don't say this is a conservative thermometer, this is a Republican no. Satellites, they don't lie to you. Could you imagine if NASA screwed up and you were using your GPS and you wanted to go to Smith Street, you ended up on Jones Street? No. I mean, the one thing that NASA does right is get the data right. So you have guys like Glenn Hawley who refuse to accept the scientists. And like we always say on this show, guys, if you're going to get your information on climate science, who do you want to go to? Climate scientists that are publishing peer-reviewed studies. That's it. That's it. You don't want to go to a blogger. You don't want to go to Anthony Watts. What's up with that? You don't want to go to Mark Morano. You don't want to go to, what's that guy's name, Soon, the Chinese doctor that we made fun of. He took, $8 million or $800,000 from the fossil fuel companies to lie. He sold out. I mean, and then you get guys like Glenn. They listen to these people. It's obvious they don't question anything. I mean, that's the reason why we're here, to ask questions. You can't be asking questions. You can't. Either that or you're so brainwashed you've been programmed not to ask. Could that be? That could be. And I just want to touch on one other thing. There's a person here, Adam M. And guys, you know how much I love to give the old bada bing to the Koch brothers. And Adam M. said, why is the Koch brothers always the default attack? If you look at their foundations, they have done far more for the Clinton Foundation and the Clintons, big champions of big oil too. But see, guys, what he's doing is he's a political default. Everything is political with them. Well, the Koch brothers did this, but the Clintons did that. Hey, thermometers don't know the difference. Stop with the BS. I've had it. And you know, and even the simple folk, you would think that the simple folk are starting to get it. All right, now, you know, the one thing that we keep hearing about climate change is that it's always a hoax, right? Uncle Joey says it's always a hoax. So Judy, let's have still number 3. Guys, don't worry, Houston. Climate change is just a liberal hoax. Guys, look at that. How, you know, can you imagine how many lives have been totally disrupted? And I mean, we don't have a lot of pictures, but you've seen the pictures. You know, I got a quick question for you. What's the best job to have down in Houston? Answer, a car salesman. Guys, everybody needs a new car. It's that simple. And the insurance companies will be writing out the checks. So, and I tell you, it's going to take you a while to get them. But you got to remember, Houston's the 4th largest city in the country. This weather brought Houston to its knees. And, you know, we keep saying, you know, is it a liberal hoax? You know, it's a liberal hoax, you know. Guys, what I say is what NASA 13 said. Houston, we have a problem. And they still have the problem. It's not over. How long is it going to take to rebuild everything? How long is it going to take to get everything going again? Months, maybe years. And are we going to learn anything from this? You know, let's take a quick look from a guy that I respect an awful lot. And he's not a climate scientist, but he's an engineer who knows an awful lot about physics. So Judy, let's have clip video number 4. This is with our buddy Bill Nye. So
you
Judy,
tweet about climate change after extreme weather events all the time, and each time it makes climate change deniers freak out.
Is little volume out here.
Well, I just want to remind voters that suppose you had somebody running for congressional office in your district who insisted that there's no connection between cigarette smoking and cancer. Would you vote for that person? I mean, you might, but if this person were adamant, no, the scientists who studied cigarette smoking, they don't know if they were adamant, would you vote for them? And so in the same way, the connection between climate change and human activity is at least as strong as cigarettes and cancer. And so I just want everybody to keep this in mind, that it's very reasonable that the floods in Texas, the strengthening storms, especially the president was in Florida, these things are a result of human activity making things worse. Now, it's very bad. I get you this, that people have died in Texas. But reminding you what else, this is very expensive business. When you flood the 4th largest city in the United States, somebody's going to pay for it. And it's you and me. And so the sooner we get to work on climate change, the better. And people say to me, Carol, Bill, they say, Nye, what can I do about climate change? And what I say nowadays is talk about it. If we were talking about climate change, the same way we talked about the stuff that goes on, let's say, in Ferguson or Baltimore, if we were talking about it, those are very serious issues, to be sure. But if we were talking about climate change in the same way, we'd be doing something about it. And then I, was born in the U.S.
Right.
I'm an engineer from the U.S. My engineering license is in the U.S. And so I want the U.S. to lead the world. I don't want the U.S. to wait for other countries to start coming up with the new technologies, the new regulations that we're going to need.
Guys, just like Bill Nye said, we have to talk about it. We have to open the discussion. It's no longer case closed. I don't care what you tell me. Like the one time I was listening to Brian Kilmeade, one of the Foxtitutes. He sold his soul a long time ago. But he came right out and said it on his radio show. I don't care what you tell me about climate change. I'm not going to believe you. Well, you know what? When we're dealing with people like that, that's why you call them brainwashed, homeschooled, simple folk. Because the fingers go in the ears, they start humming, and it's a shame that we have people that are uneducated and that are making that have access to the airwaves in this country. Now, Judy, let's go back, because you know what they always say, it's a hoax, it's a liberal hoax. Well, guys, let me tell you something. That water does not look like a hoax to me. But you know what really looks like a hoax and what's a real joke is when a senator comes up on the floor of the Senate and has the audacity to hold a snowball in his hand to confirm that climate change is not happening. And guys, this guy had the Galaducci's to write a book about the fact that global warming was a hoax. You know, now we've said on this show and what Lawrence Krauss has said, listen, the most important thing we need in this country is informed legislatures. If these guys are stupid enough where they sold out to the 1% in the fossil fuel companies, there's only one thing we can do. Get rid of them. And you're going to say, you know, when it comes to the weather, you know, you're going to say, like Joey said, it's a coincidence. And guys, I'm telling you, the next still that we have, believe it or not, is a pure coincidence. Judy, can you put it up, please? Guys, wait, come back to me, Judy, because I want to... Guys, when I was looking for stuff, I had already downloaded this from show 78. So that's 20 weeks ago. And I forgot about it. And I'm sitting there and I'm rounding up all this stuff about coincidences. And for whatever reason, I don't know, I happen to click on that. And Judy, go back to it now. And you could see, what a coincidence. So guys, sometimes I really think there is a God. So anyway, I clicked on this and we'll read it. The Koch brothers, who make huge profits in fossil fuel, do not believe that climate change is caused by human activity. What a coincidence. Almost all Republicans whose party receives hundreds of millions in campaign help from the Koch brothers also agree that climate change is not caused by human activity. This country cannot move forward without real campaign finance reform. And that's from, Judy, come back to me, from Bernie Sanders. But guys, you see how devious these guys are. And this is the one thing I want you to take away from this show, is the fact that it's, you know, it's a coincidence. And, you know, Judy, let's go to the next slide. The next one should show there. Guys, now you look at the drought in California. Is that a coincidence or is that climate change? And guys, I'm going to read you from, this is from, let's see. This is from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, and this is a coincidence, a situation in which events happen at the same time in a way that is not planned or expected. It's a coincidence. And guys, when we look at the next still, and Boston had the most snowfall ever. Guys, Judy, come back to me. Is that a coincidence or is that climate change? And this is the climate change definition from dictionary.com: a striking occurrence of two or more events at one time, apparently by mere chance. Guys, mere chance. And then I say, is it coincidence or is it climate change? So Judy, let's go to the next still. Guys, it's so hot in India that the roads are melting. Look at that. The roads are melting. Those used to be straight lines, but the asphalt melted so bad that you don't know what's what anymore. And guys, this is from the definition from the Free Dictionary. Coincidence, a sequence of events that, although accidental, seem to have been planned or arranged. I mean, this fits right in with the conspiracy theory, doesn't it? Uncle Joe must be sitting home going, yeah, yeah. No. Sorry, Joey. And I'm sorry for all the simple folk that don't understand science. I mean, you know, I think so far, guys, there's been over 1,000 people in India that have died. So once again, and for the last time in this clip, when somebody says something about the weather, and guys, on the way down to the studio, my son's calling me. How about this? Hey, Rich. Rich, we're live on TV. You know that, right?
Oh shit.
Hey, Rich, we're live. We're live on TV.
Hello, TV. How you guys doing?
Put on channel 23, and I'll talk to you when you get home. Love you.
What was that?
Rich, I'm on TV. I'll talk to you later. Toodles. Put on channel 23. Bye-bye. Love you. That was weird. Where was I now? Okay, with the heat wave, right? Okay, so there's over 1,000 people that I believe have already died in India. And then you say to yourself, is that a coincidence or is that climate change? So Judy, let's show how hot it really is in India. Let's have clip number 10.
People in India are used to hot summers, but not like this.
It is too hot. It's even tough to accept that there is so much heat.
Temperatures have been climbing for a month, and a serious heat wave has developed. In Andhra Pradesh, more than 850 people have died. In the middle of the day, there's a bit of shade and some ponds to cool off in. The biggest problems are heat stroke and dehydration.
Vehicles are breaking down because of overheating. We are sweating so much, throat is getting dry. We have to keep quenching our thirst frequently.
And it doesn't look like letting up anytime soon. The government is telling people to stay indoors if they can, wear a hat and drink lots of water. The Meteorological Office has blamed the heat wave on a shortage of rain and is warning people there are more hot days to come. The last big heat waves in India in 2002 and 2003 killed thousands of people. Nicole Johnston, Al Jazeera.
Guys, what's the best way to cool off on a hot summer day? Come on. We all know. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream, right? And who makes the best ice cream in the planet? Ben & Jerry's, right? Well, I tell you what, guys. Ben & Jerry's has something very specific to say about climate change and global warming. But you know what? We'll let the clip do the talking.
This is what happens when ice cream is just 2 degrees warmer than it should be. For Ben & Jerry's, it's a mess. For the planet, it's a metaphor. because a 2-degree warming of our planet's climate would have an equally dramatic, though much more significant, impact. But we can prevent it. If we take action and demand that governments, policymakers, and business leaders do what it takes to stay below 2 degrees, we can reverse the trend of climate change. By acting now, we'll create innovative solutions that keep our planet, and those who live on it, thriving. Because while a 2-degree change may not seem like much, the truth is, it means the world to us. Join the global climate movement and take action now at benjerry.com/climate.
2 degrees, guys. That's what they're talking about, 2 degrees. But when they say 2 degrees, most of the world deals in Celsius. We deal in Fahrenheit. So, of course, yours truly, because, you know, we want to learn on this show. You know, when you try to do a comparison between Celsius and Fahrenheit, 2 degrees Celsius is actually equal to 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So I guess it would be safe to say that each degree Celsius equals 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you get on Jeopardy and that question comes up, remember, no, but guys, it's so true. And, you know, it gets even worse than that when you really think about it. What's the difference between 33 degrees and 32 degrees? I mean, aside from the fact that there's 1 degree difference. At 32 degrees, it's going to freeze solid. Eventually, it's going to freeze. 1 degree, that's all it takes. And we're going to show you some stuff from the National Academy of Sciences that's going to help confirm everything that I'm saying. Because, you know, here, the one thing we always want to do is find out who's telling you the truth. That's the reason why we do the show. All right, so we're going to do the second clip now from Ben and Jerry's. And I can tell you guys, this warms my heart because you see so many people involved. Go ahead, Judy, hit it.
Right now, we have over 2,600 climate marches happening all over the world. At this moment, London streets are filled with marchers just like us. We've got Australians. The world is marching with you.
This is the biggest climate movement in history.
This struggle is about securing our children and grandchildren's futures.
So this is our opportunity to come together as humanity and rethink everything and do it right this time. We're basically driving a system that we just don't really understand.
We're heading towards a full-blown disaster and our global government is not doing anything about it.
If we don't reach a solution, humanity as we know it will disappear off this planet. That reality needs to sink into the minds of the political leaders that are holding us back.
The best thing that we can do is invest in the next generation because they are going to take this over and it's going to be the battle of their lifetime.
For our generation, our survival is at stake.
We're here today to change the world.
I finally made a difference in the world.
We are all taking the stand together and this is what will produce change and a better environment for us all.
All these struggles only moved forward when decent men and women stood up and said, enough is enough and no more.
The only thing that we don't have on our side yet are leaders in government and business, and that's going to change after today.
Businesses have an incredible amount of influence with policymakers. If we all come together and take action on climate change, it's an incredibly positive vision for the future.
The issue is so important that people need to be willing to take to the streets.
We shape what will be in the history books. This will be in the history books. It is what we make out of it.
It's really simple. If it melted, it's ruined. Guys, there's no planet B. If we screw this up, that's it. Regardless of what the Koch brothers tell you. when the world gets warmer, the weather starts, the climate starts to change and you see what's happening. And you have to start saying to yourself, is it a coincidence or is it climate change? And guys, of course, like I said on this show, the one thing that we like to do is we always like to prove our point. And we're better to get our information from than from the National Academy of Sciences, the place where the experts come, the independent experts. They're not politically involved in anything. The data is the data, and that's all they care about. And they want to tell you how the data is going to affect us. That's it. It's kind of simple. So, Judy, let's do some learning. Let's have the National Academy of Sciences.
How do we know that Earth is warmed? Scientists have been taking widespread global measurements of Earth's surface temperature for centuries. By the 1880s, there was enough data to produce reliable estimates of global average temperature. These data have steadily improved, and today temperatures are recorded by thermometers at many thousands of locations, both on land and over the oceans. Different research groups, including NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, Great Britain's Hadley Center, and the Japanese Meteorological Agency, have used these raw measurements to produce records of long-term surface temperature change. Research groups work carefully to make sure the data aren't skewed by such things as changes in the instruments taking the measurements, or by other factors that affect local temperature, such as additional heat that has come from the gradual growth of cities. These analyses all show that Earth's average surface temperature has increased by more than 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit over the past 100 years, with much of this increase taking place over the past 35 years. A temperature change of 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit may not seem like much if you're thinking about a daily or seasonal fluctuation. However, it is a significant change when you think about a permanent increase averaged across the entire planet. For example, 1.4 degrees is more than the average annual temperature difference between Washington, D.C. and Charleston, South Carolina, which is more than 450 miles south of Washington. Think about this. On any given day, a difference of 9 degrees Fahrenheit might be the difference between wearing a sweater or not, but a change of 9 degrees in the global average temperature is the estimated difference between the climate of today and an ice age. In addition to surface temperature, other parts of the climate system are also being monitored carefully. For example, a variety of instruments are used to measure temperature, salinity, and currents beneath the ocean surface. Weather balloons are used to probe the temperature, humidity, and winds in the atmosphere. A key breakthrough in the ability to track global environmental changes began in the 1970s with the dawn of the era of satellite remote sensing. Many different types of sensors, carried on many dozens of satellites, have allowed us to build a truly global picture of changes in the temperature of the atmosphere and of the ocean and land surfaces. Satellite data are also used to study shifts in precipitation and changes in land cover. Even though satellites do not measure temperature in the same way as instruments on the surface of Earth, and any errors would be of a completely different nature, the two records agree. A number of other indicators of global warming have also been observed. For example, heat waves are becoming more frequent. Cold snaps are now shorter and milder. Snow and ice cover are decreasing in the northern hemisphere. Glaciers and ice caps around the world are melting. and many plant and animal species are moving to different latitudes or higher altitudes due to changes in temperature. The picture that emerges from all of these data sets is clear and consistent. Earth is warming.
All right, you got to turn my mic back up. All right. Guys, that was the first clip from the National Academy of Sciences, but we're not going to stop there. We're just going to pile it on. And why? Because knowledge is beneficial. Knowledge is power. And the more you know, the more you can give the old bada bing to the simple folk. And guys, you know, don't be afraid to give people a business when it comes to climate science, because this is so important. And eventually they'll thank you for it, even though, like Joey, you know, he knows better. But he's so entrenched with the Republican Conservative Party, he can't back out now. It's too late for him. But you know what? Maybe we can get his kids to wake up. So the next clip is another one from the National Academy of Sciences. When you want to get the best information, go to the source. Judy?
How do we know humans are causing greenhouse gas concentrations to increase? Determining the human influence of greenhouse gas concentrations was challenging because many greenhouse gases occur naturally in Earth's atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is produced and consumed in many natural processes that are part of the carbon cycle. Once humans began digging up long-buried forms of carbon, such as coal and oil, and burning them for energy, additional CO2 was released into the atmosphere, much more rapidly than in the natural carbon cycle. Other human activities, such as cement production and cutting down forests, have also added CO2 to the atmosphere. Until the 1950s, many scientists thought the oceans would absorb most of the excess CO2 released by human activities. Then, a series of scientific papers were published that examined the dynamics of carbon dioxide exchange between the ocean and atmosphere, including a paper by oceanographers Roger Revelle and Hans Suess in 1957, and another by Bert Bolin and Eric Erikson in 1959. This work led scientists to the hypothesis that the oceans could not absorb all of the CO2 being emitted. To test this hypothesis, Revelle's colleague Charles David Keeling began collecting air samples at the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii to track changes in CO2 concentrations. Today, such measurements are made at many sites around the world. The data reveal a steady increase in atmospheric CO2. To determine how CO2 concentration varied prior to modern measurements, scientists have studied the composition of air bubbles trapped in ice cores extracted from Greenland and Antarctica. These data show that for at least 2,000 years before the Industrial Revolution, atmospheric CO2 concentration was steady, and then began to rise sharply beginning in the late 19th century. Today, atmospheric CO2 concentration exceeds 390 parts per million, around 40% higher than pre-industrial levels. And according to ice core data, higher than any point in the past 800,000 years. Human activities have increased the atmospheric concentrations of other important greenhouse gases as well. Methane, which is produced by the burning of fossil fuels, the raising of livestock, the decay of landfill wastes, the production and transport of natural gas, and other activities increased sharply throughout the industrial age, before starting to level off at about 2.5 times its pre-industrial level. Nitrous oxide has increased by roughly 15% since 1750, mainly as a result of agricultural fertilizer use. but also from fossil fuel burning and certain industrial processes. Some industrial chemicals, such as chlorofluorocarbons, used in refrigerants and spray cans, act as potent greenhouse gases and are long-lived in the atmosphere. However, the concentration of CFCs are decreasing due to the success of the 1989 Montreal Protocol, which banned their use. Because CFCs do not have natural sources, their increases can easily be attributed to human activities. In addition to direct measurements of atmospheric CO2 concentrations, there are detailed records of how much coal, oil, and natural gas is burned each year. Through science, estimates are made of how much CO2 is being absorbed on average by the oceans and plant life on land. These analyses show that almost half of the excess CO2 emitted from human activity remains in the atmosphere for many centuries. Just as a sink will fill up if water enters faster than it can drain, human production of CO2 is outstripping Earth's natural ability to remove it from the air. As a result, atmospheric CO2 levels are increasing. A forensic-style analysis of the CO2 in the atmosphere reveals the chemical fingerprints of natural and fossil fuel carbon. These lines of evidence prove conclusively that the increase in atmospheric CO2 is the result of human activities.
Okay, you can come back to me now. All right, didn't they do a nice job, guys? So, Uncle Joe, when you want to smoke me in physics, I'm just going to say one thing to you. You take Newton's third law, and if you're going to put, you know, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And when you saw the chart, you saw the amount of carbon dioxide that we're putting in the air. And I mean, this is no aberration. When you look at this, I mean, we're off the chart. And because you know physics so well, you're going to know that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So you yourself know that global warming is a disaster waiting to happen. Right, Joe? Now, when are we going to start to admit this? When are we going to man up and finally admit that you're wrong, the globe is warming, the climate is changing, and it's time to start doing something about it? When are you going to man up? I mean, you can't go through life pretending not to know this. You can't go through life pretending to be one of the brainwashed simple folk that doesn't understand science or doesn't know how to spell it. It's got to stop. All right, now the next video is from NASA. And what better source than we could want than NASA? And NASA is going to actually show you what happens when the carbon gets put in the air and how it circulates around the globe. So Judy, pour it on.
Hi, this is Bill Putman. I'm a climate scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. What you're looking at is a supercomputer model of carbon dioxide levels in the Earth's atmosphere. The visualization compresses 1 year of data into a few minutes. Carbon dioxide is the most important greenhouse gas affected by human activity. About half of the carbon dioxide emitted from fossil fuel combustion remains in the atmosphere, while the other half is absorbed by natural land and ocean reservoirs. In the Northern Hemisphere, we see the highest concentrations are focused around major emission sources over North America, Europe, and Asia. Notice how the gas doesn't stay in one place. The dispersion of carbon dioxide is controlled by the large-scale weather patterns within the global circulation. During spring and summer in the Northern Hemisphere, Plants absorb a substantial amount of carbon dioxide through photosynthesis, thus removing some of the gas from the atmosphere. We see this change in the model as the red and purple colors start to fade. Meanwhile, in the southern hemisphere, we see the release of another pollutant, carbon monoxide. This is a gas that's both harmful to the environment and to humans. During the summer months, plumes of carbon monoxide stream from fires in Africa, South America, and Australia, contributing to high concentrations in the atmosphere. Notice how these emissions are also transported by winds to other parts of the world. As summer transitions to fall and plant photosynthesis decreases, carbon dioxide begins to accumulate in the atmosphere. Although this change is expected, we're seeing higher concentrations of carbon dioxide accumulate in the atmosphere each year. This is contributing to the long-term trend of rising global temperatures. The Orbiting Carbon Observatory 2, or OCO2, will be the first NASA satellite mission to provide a global view of carbon dioxide. OCO2 observations and atmospheric models like GEOS 5 will work closely together to better understand both human emissions and natural fluxes of carbon dioxide. This will help guide climate models toward more reliable predictions of future conditions across the globe.
See that, guys? It's not hocus pocus. It's not magic. It's science. Simple. Simple. It's science. Spelled a little bit differently, you know. But guys, the one thing that drives me crazy, and especially with the people, the religious people, the conservatives, you know, what they do is they believe in things that don't exist, that's God, and they refuse to accept what is real and provable, like science and climate change. Now, on the next clip, we're going to show you how God is sparing the town in Texas that got rid of the abortion clinic.
What's on your mind?
While he's flooding the other towns where the sodomites live. And guys, this is how these people think. This is an actual phone call to a conservative radio station, hate radio. And guys, you listen and you be the judge. Judy?
What's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to make some comments on the Texas flooding. The places that are underwater, Austin, Wimberley, San Marcos, Bastrop, and the Hill Country,
yeah,
they're overrun with witchcraft and sodomy. If you go into those areas, you can just see it. And also Houston, they have a whole area that's like a Sodom and Gomorrah. It's Montrose Street. And then, you know, they have a sodomite mayor. So if anybody says that Texas is being judged for its conservative values, or being judged and can even connect conservative values with it, that's very far-fetched, because here in the Brazos Valley, we're like between Austin and Houston, and we've had a lot of flooding too, but we're not underwater even though we're in a valley. You know what's different about the Brazos Valley is that we kicked out abortion. We don't have an abortion clinic, and the views here are pretty conservative. So I just find that very interesting. I believe if God's judging Texas, it's because of the witchcraft and sodomy that we've allowed to run rampant. So,
okay, Rebecca, well, listen, I appreciate the call. You know, and Rebecca's point is, look, if you're going to attribute what's happened, the flooding in Texas, to some kind of supernatural cause, says you can make a geographical connection between the flooding and the practice of the occult and witchcraft and the embrace of homosexuality. That's where the disaster is being felt the worst. So that's an interesting thing. And of course, I'm not saying this is what's happening in Texas, but you know, Sodom and Gomorrah, that was a natural disaster, and it was very localized. I mean, it's probably volcanic activity, but it wiped out those 2 towns. It didn't wipe out the entire region. It just wiped out those 2 cities where homosexuality had been embraced. So that is Rebecca's point, that if you're going to make a case that there's some kind of supernatural origin to this natural disaster, that probably be the place to look.
Guys, you can get these simple folk to believe anything. I mean, when you think that the fact that you got rid of an abortion clinic saved your town from flooding, you got a couple of screws loose. I mean, that's some serious... I hope you don't have kids. I really don't. I hope you don't put anybody else in a gene pool. No, because that's scary. And guys, you know, 2 can play this game. We can do the same thing that this woman did. So Judy, let's see still number 17. Come on, it's a double rainbow. Judy, we've been out. There we go. See, this is from Mary Van Duren, guys. Ireland got a double rainbow after legalizing same-sex marriage. Texas got a flood after banning it. God has spoken. Judy, come back to, I rest my case. God has spoken, guys. You saw. Now, isn't that ridiculous? And if there was a God, do you really think that he would flood a city? Do you really, if there was a God, do you really think he would allow his children to be brainwashed by hate radio and Fox News? And Judy, can you bring up number 20 just to go out with? And guys, we'll leave you with this little still from Fox News. The only thing, they forgot one thing on this. It says rich people paying rich people to tell the middle class people to blame the poor people. Guys, they forgot to blame the poor people and the immigrants, right? Got to blame the immigrants. It's their fault too, because they're moochers and takers, right, guys? Hey, guys, remember, it's all about science and the simple folk that don't want to understand it. So, guys, we'll see you next week. Is our time up? Okay, see you next week, guys.